Good morning, students. This is Dr. Kasturi from Wales. Today we are going to see about the subject software engineering. Let us get into the subject. In software engineering, we are going to see block 2, that is software cost estimation. In software cost estimation, we are going to see unit 5, that is functional and non-functional requirements. What is the objective of this unit? We are going to see the two important terms used in the software engineering that are functional requirements and non-functional requirements. And also we are going to compare both of them. Then the understanding the difference between both terms that helps to ensure that the delivered product meets the expectation of the client. Therefore, to deliver the product with 100% expectation of the client, we need the two things, effective things. They are the functional requirements and the non-functional requirements. What are the functional requirements? You define a function that a system or a system element must be qualified to perform, and it must be documented in different forms. Whatever it's going to perform in functionality, and those things are documented in the documentation. The functional requirements describe the behavior of the system as it correlates to the system functionality. Yes, behavior of the system is what? The functionality of the system. In the document, it will be described as the behavior of the system, and in action, it should be seen in its functionality. Functional requirements should be written in a simple language, should not be complex, so that it can be understandable easily by all the members of the software. The examples of functional requirements are authentication, business rules or logic, audit tracking, certificate requirements, transaction correction, and so on. So these requirements allow us to verify whether the application provides all functionality mentioned in the application's functional requirements. Whatever we made documentation, okay, those things should be done in action. That is, the requirements allow us to verify whether the application provides all functionalities. Yes, what are the requirements needed by the customer or the client should be provided as functionalities, which was mentioned in the application's functional requirement documentation. And what do the functional requirement do? How it can be implemented as task, activities, user goals for easier project management. What are the number of ways to prepare functional requirements? There are two ways. One is that we can document in the text format. It's a common way. And the other one is preparing the functional requirements in the form of use cases, models, prototype, user stories, and diagrams. Prototypes is like a blueprint. Different types of diagrams can be used. And use case model by using UML diagrams, it can also be depicted. The functional requirements can also be depicted using these types, apart from the text format. Now move on to the non-functional requirements. Non-functional requirements are not related to the software functional aspect, but the functional requirements is purely dependent upon the functional aspect. But here it is not related. Then what is the non-functional requirement? That is, it can specify the criteria that can be used to decide the operation. If the functional requirement is an operation, a non-functional requirement is deciding the operation. Therefore, deciding the operation is non-functional requirement, and the operation, the original operation, is a functional requirement. That is, non-functional requirements specify the criteria that can be used to decide the operation instead of specific behavior of the system. What are some examples of non-functional requirements? What are they? Basic non-functional requirements: usability, reliability, security, storage, cost, flexibility, configuration, performance, legal or regularity requirements, etc. These comes under non-functional. Okay, then. Non-functional requirements specify the software's quality attribute. These requirements define the general characteristics, behavior of the system, and features that affect the experience of the user. Yes, what is software quality? Definitely the user experience, the quality. By using the software itself, we know the quality of the user, how it is working. Therefore, non-functional requirements affects the experience of the user because it shows the quality of the software. They ensure a better user experience and minimizes the cost factor. Yes, a non-functional requirement should do this. It should give a better user experience and it also should minimize the cost factor. Non-functional requirements ensure that the software system must follow the legal and adherence rules. The impact of non-functional requirement is not on the functionality of the system, but the impact how it will perform. For a well-performing product, at least some of the non-functional requirements should be met. They can be broadly divided into two categories. That is non-functional requirements can be broadly divided into two main categories. They are execution qualities and evaluation qualities. How do we check the quality of execution? By security and usability, which can be observed at runtime. Likewise, we can check the execution qualities. Now, how do we check the evaluation qualities? By testability, maintainability, extensibility, and scalability. Ability to test, ability to maintain the software, the ability to extend the software, and ability to scaling. That is, the demands, the performance of the system or a product can be increased or decreased depending upon the demands, customer demands, changing customer demands. Okay. Okay, now we are going to see the functional requirements versus non-functional. We are going to compare both the functional requirements and the non-functional requirements. Okay. The functional requirements help to understand the function of the system. Functions. We can have many functions for a particular system. In non-functional requirements, they help to understand the system's performance. You can understand the performance, but actual functions are done in functional requirements. Functional requirements are mandatory, they are compulsory, while non-functional requirements are not mandatory, but they predict the quality of the software. They are easy to define, they're hard to define. The purpose of defining, we can define we are having so and so function. It's easy compared to the non-functional requirements. They describe what the product does. Okay, what is the function? It will define. They describe the working of the product. It concentrates on the user's requirements. Yeah, based upon the user's requirement, the client's requirement, the software developer will have the functions. It concentrates on the expectation and experience of the user. Here, it's purely depends upon the requirements of the user. That is the functional requirement. And here, non-functional requirement, it concentrates on the expectation, the experience of the user. This one, functional requirement, it helps us to verify the software's functionality. Non-functional, it helps us to verify the software's performance. The functionality and working of the function is checked in the non-functional requirement. Functional requirement is what? To verify the function, it's working fine or what. But here, assessing the performance of the functionality is done in the non-functional requirements. Here, these requirements are specified by the user. Yeah, so and so requirement, so and so function I need. These are specified by the user. Here, these requirements are specified by the software developers because the performance of the function will be well known by the developer, technical persons, architects, and technical persons. There is a functional testing such as API testing, that is application program interface testing, system testing, integration testing, many so on, so many testing, etc. For testing the functionality of functions or requirements, functional requirements. There is non-functional testing such as usability, performance tests, security, etc. for non-functional requirements testing. Okay. What are the examples of functional requirements that we saw in the already? Requirements are authentication of a user on trying to log on to a system. Yes, authentication when we need authentication when we log into a particular app or particular system. That is what a function example for functional requirement. Here, what are the examples of non-functional requirement? Then the background color of the screen should be light blue. Yes, the aesthetic look of a screen is a non-functional requirement. These requirements are important to system operation. These are not always important. These systems are important. Definitely, these functions should be mandatorily available to perform a whole system as a whole system. But these are not always important requirements. They may be desirable whenever needed. Completion of functional requirements allows the system to perform irrespective of meeting the non-functional requirements. Whether we are meeting the non-functional requirements, whether we are maintaining the quality, performance, security, etc. Apart from that, we should complete the functional requirements. But here, in non-functional requirements, system will not work only with non-functional requirements. It's not mandatory here. Okay, now it was very clear in the slide, the difference between the functional requirements and the non-functional requirements. Okay, move on to the next slide. What is the summary we have seen? The two important terms used in software engineering, that is functional and non-functional requirements, along with we compared it and understand the difference. Yes, we should also know the difference between the functional requirements and the non-functional requirements, and both work together to get a product delivered with the 100% expectation of a client. And so the possible questions we can expect from this unit: what is non-functional requirements, or explain functional requirements, differentiate non-functional requirements and functional requirements. Thank you. Have a nice day.